Okay, seventh graders, here is your final reading of Loser by Jerry Spinelli. I know I've enjoyed this book. I've heard from other teachers that Jerry Spinelli has just produced a lot of great books. So it's somebody that, if you enjoyed listening to this, I'm recommending him to check out other books of his. This is the only book I've read of his, but as I share and talk about the book I'm reading aloud with my seventh grade, people are like, "Oh yeah, I know him. He's awesome." So, great author, Jerry Spinelli, Loser, chapter 27. He comes to the end of the alley. He goes down the street, up another alley, sucking on the bubblegum stone, keeping it warm. He blows on his fingers. He looks up. He can no longer feel the flakes on his face except on his lips. He wishes he could see the stars. He still thinks of them as his stars. He remembers one of his earliest beliefs, that a number of stars fell to earth each day so that mothers could go about gathering them for their children's shirts. He wishes he still believed it. He stops, faces full to the sky. He closes his eyes, feels the flakes on his eyelids, cold ash of dying stars. He wants to stop. He wants to go to sleep. He thinks of his bed. He pictures himself in his pajamas. No, first he pictures himself in the bathtub. He has been taking showers because he's big now, but for this one more time, he wants the bath. He lets the water run and run, and his mother doesn't call up, "Donald, that's enough! Turn it off!" Not this time. He lets the warm water rise all the way to his belly button before he turns it off. Then he slinks down into the steamy, everlasting warmness, only his head above, and then into bed. Under the covers, curled up, shivering not from cold but with delight, giggling under his soft, warm mountain of covers, he stumbles over something, goes lurching into a chain link fence. The fence rattles, then spills its dislodged snow with a sound like breath going out. He yells. He screams down the trench of blackness, "Claudia!" Silence. Surprisingly, the top of his head is not cold. His hair is thick, and the snow that falls upon it keeps getting shaken off by his repeated stumbles and fallings, but his ears, they are freezing. The crests of his ears are so cold they feel as if they're burning. He muffs them with his hands, but his hands are as cold as his ears. He's going to get hollered at good when he gets home. His mother is always telling him not to go out in weather like this without his hat. She's going to say, "Heaven help me," at least 50 times. He thinks of the waiting man. He wonders if the waiting man ever thought of going over to Vietnam and looking for his brother himself. And then it occurs to him. Maybe he did. Maybe he did go over there as soon as he heard his brother was missing in action. Maybe he figured he was the best one to go looking for his own brother. And maybe he went tramping up and down the jungle till his shoes wore out. And maybe he was on his second or third pair of shoes when they kicked him out because it was their jungle, not his, and so that's why he came back to the window. He had no choice. And he sees the front window of Claudia's house across the street from the waiting man. And he sees Claudia's mother, hears a voice from the future. Yeah, it's a shame. One night during a snowstorm, the little girl ran off. Used to wear a harness, just took off. Whole town came out looking for her, even the Zinkoff kid. They looked and looked, turned this town upside down, never could find her. Now look, her mother sits in that window waiting for her little girl to come home. Been waiting there for over 30 years. He bites down hard on his lucky stone. Claudia? He comes to the end of the second alley and finds a third, and comes to the end of that and finds another. Before one turn, he sees red and white spinning lights in the distance. He no longer wants to scold them for looking in the wrong place. Seeing the lights makes him feel good now, makes him feel part of a team as he heads down the next alleyway. He hasn't noticed, but the back house lights have gone out along the way, the kitchens and bedrooms. He does notice, however, that something is different. Noise. The snow has become noisy. A vast brushy noise all about him as of a broom sweeping. He lifts his face. He feels tiny prickles on his skin. It's not snow, but it's not rain either. Within minutes, the soft, sweeping sound has become a chittering, as if someone above is sprinkling salt on the world. His footsteps crunch. He reaches down. The top of the snow has become crusty, slick and cold and crusty. Not good for making snow angels. He should have made a snow angel before the snow got crusty. He wonders if Claudia is making snow angels. He wonders if angels are invisible in the snow. He wonders if angels make people in the snow. He wonders if Claudia is an angel. The tiny grains of ice have turned to freezing rain that pelts his face and runs down his neck and onto his shoulders and wakes him up, which is quite a surprise since he didn't know he had gone to sleep in the first place. But here he is, lying, not standing in the snow. He tries to push himself up, but his hand breaks through the crust, and snow like cold cotton runs up inside his coat arm, past his elbow. He jumps up. He flaps his arm violently to shake out the snow. The snow falls out, but try to get his icicle of an arm to believe it. He trundles onward. His head is soaking wet. He's taking a shower. Hey, Mom, I'm taking a shower. Does he say it or think it? He's not sure. He's not sure of a lot of things anymore. Things seem to be blending, differences disappearing. He is no longer sure where he ends and the snow begins. Snow is him. Cold is him. Night is him. He knows himself only by the stone in his mouth, the last faintly glowing ember of what used to be Zinkoff. He clamps the stone in his teeth, covers it with his tongue. He stomps once through the crust, trying to shake the rest of himself loose from the night. He stomps again and barks into the night. Claudia! Now she's mad. Now she's made him mad. Wait till I get a hold of you. A gleam of light, a distant voice, a funny siren. Sounds like a hiccup, he calls. I'm looking here! You look there! We'll find her! Or does he just think he calls? He reminds himself, Claudia's mother, the waiting man. One waiter is enough. There will be no more waiters on the 900 block of Willow. Period! He says that out loud and falls asleep. He's still walking, but he's asleep as surely as any of those people behind the back house windows. And why not? It's so easy when you are the night, and the night is you, and you're down to the last stone in your mouth, and there's nothing to see anyway. It's all black. So where's the difference between an open eye and an eye closed? Until you walk into a garage door. He bounces rudely off the door and falls on his back into the snow. He's up and slogging onward, turned around now in the confusion and heading back the way he can. Claudia! Walking and walking, thud, thud, shush, shush. Oh, mailman! He looks up. She smiles. Come on in, she says, and he goes in. And what a wonderful surprise. It's hot chocolate time. Sounds like he's half asleep, half awake. Perhaps dreaming. There's his old Winnie the Pooh mug from when he was little. She pours in the hot chocolate, all foamy and steaming, and then comes the best part, the Cool Whip. She scoops some on, but not enough, never enough, because it's his mother now, and she's playing the game. She's waiting for him to say, more? So he says it, and she piles on more, and he has to practically sink his whole face into the Cool Whip to get down to the hot chocolate. And it's heaven. It's heaven. It's a car. He has sleepwalked onto a street and into a parked car. He trundles on. He thinks he's in an alley, but he's in the middle of a street. He hears a squawk, the hiccuping siren. He sees a flashing light, red, blue. He's glad they're still out looking for her. He thinks they will find her first. The rain is coming down harder now. He can hear it. The sound is so much louder. He squints. He tries to see the rain in the streetlight, but he cannot seem to focus. He holds out his hand. He tries to look at it, but his hand will not stay still. He looks up. Nothing falls on his face. The rain has stopped. The snow has stopped. If not the rain, what is that noise? It's himself. His teeth, they're chattering, rattling worse than Clunker 9, shaking like his hand, like his whole body, the lucky stone dancing in his mouth. Zinkoff is cold, pretending is warm. He pretends he's his dad. With every step he says, piece of cake, piece of cake. He lurches into another car. He punches himself to stay awake. He stomps. He can't feel his toes. Who took his toes? He sings, somebody took my toes. He sings, Claudia, oh Claudia. He must stay awake, must find her. No more waiting. He spells his favorite word. He calls it out loud to the chitter chattering night. Tintinnabulation. He sings it. Tintinnabulation. He hears Claudia calling. She's on Half Tank Hill. She's on his sled, on his back, and they're sailing down the hill, and she's screaming, screaming. She's Polly, sitting on his dad's shoulder, screaming, go, Donald, go, Donald. And he goes. He blazes like the wind down the sidewalk, racing the cars, beating them to the end of the block. And the Z shall be first, declares Mr. Yalowitz. And the Z shall be last, declares Mrs. Biswell. And the waiting man winks in the window and says, pass me a snickerdoodle. Yellow button, what do you say? Get off my team, says the yellow button. 1,000 congratulations. Give me a T. Give me an I. Give me an N. What do you got? Candles. Get your candles here. Genuine earwax candles. 2,160 congratulations apiece. 2,160. 2,100. All aboard. All aboard. Next stop, Jabip. Jabip, Jabip. Good morning, young citizens. Good morning, good heaven. Help, heaven, help, help. The lights are blinding him. The lights are rumbling. He knows that he must turn away. He must get to the alley. He must find Claudia. But he cannot get away from the lights. He cannot move. And a whistle is screaming, and a voice is saying, hold on, son, I gotcha. Chapter 28. Grounded. What predictions have you made? Voices. And a sound like scissors. He is warm. He doesn't want to look. It is warm and safe behind closed eyes. Never saw anything like it. Good thing I was paying attention. A man's voice he thinks he's heard before, in the distance, but he hears it clearly. He didn't say why? His father's voice. Didn't say anything. Probably couldn't anyway. He was shaking. Funny though, when I stopped and got out, I swore I heard him singing. And you knew who it was? His mother. Well, I figured. I mean, who else could it be? He fit the description. Height-wise, anyway. Otherwise, he looked like a drowned cat. And you were on the lookout? His mother. You heard the description, and you were going slow, and you were keeping an eye out. No more than everybody else. One good thing after another. His father. I was you. I couldn't wait to ask him why. He's been doing that all his life. Uncle Stanley. Running from the house. Can't keep him tied down. Always going. Used to believe he didn't sleep. Used to sneak out of the house to get to school early. Early! Not me. Chuckles. Me neither, but that's him. His sister, too. When she was 2, she walked halfway to Cleveland one day. To Ludlow Avenue. Far enough. Laughter. And he thinks, Claudia. His eyes are open. He's in his parents' bed. Polly is kneeling beside him with a pair of scissors. She gawks at him. She bolts from the bed and yells downstairs, "Mommy, Mommy, he's awake!" Goodbyes are said. The front door opens and closes, footsteps coming. They're all in the room. His parents, Polly, Uncle Stanley. His mother sits on the bed. She feels his forehead. "I can't believe you don't have a fever." He is speaking, but his mother overlays his voice with hers. "Donald, what were you doing out there?" The question is almost too silly to answer, but he says anyway, "Looking for Claudia," he adds, to show them how silly, like everybody else. They're staring at him, funny like, all four of them. Uh-oh, he thinks, they still didn't find her. Now they're looking at each other. "Claudia?" his mother says. "The little lost girl last night," explains Uncle Stanley. "That's her name." The look on his mother's face is scaring him. Her eyes are sparkling directly above his. Her voice is almost down to a whisper. "You were looking for the little girl?" He nods, afraid to speak, afraid something will break. At 1 o'clock in the morning? All that time? He nods again. Her face is really scaring him now. So is his father's. Uncle Stanley turns away. He says, "He doesn't know. She's dead." Donald's thoughts. Donald, his mother's hands are cupping his face. He feels her breath. The little girl was found shortly after she got lost. "Found her in somebody's car, in the garage," says his father. His voice is hoarse. "Door wide open. She was pretending to drive." Who's ever done that? Uncle Stanley clears his throat. "She was back in her house by, what, 7:30? 8 o'clock, tops?" His father nods. "Yep." His mother is doing a trick with her face. It is sad and smiley at the same time. "But you didn't know that, did you? You just kept looking and looking?" He nods. Then starts remembering, and the more he remembers, the more confused he becomes. "But I saw lights and sirens." She's looking down on him, crying and smiling. "So if Claudia was found back home safe and sound by 8 o'clock tops," he looks up into his mother's sad and happy smile. He says, "Who were they looking for?" And reads the answer at once in her face, but waits anyway for her to say it. "You, Donald. They were looking for you." For the longest time, the room is nothing but eyes. His mother's, his father's, his sister, Uncle Stanley, all staring at him as if he will disappear if they don't. He's in a cradle of eyes. Polly pokes him. "Yeah, dummy, you!" And then the bed rocks and rolls as they all jump aboard. They're squeezing him and mussing his hair, and Polly is shrieking, "You're sitting on it!" She pulls something out from under his father, the thing she has been cutting with the scissors. A large piece of white paper cut to a fancy design. She unfolds it, holds it up proudly for him to see. Uncle Stanley gives a groaning chuckle. Just what he needs, another snowflake. For the first time since he opened his eyes, he notices the light streaming through the bedroom windows and remembers, "Are we having a snow day?" "Ever since it came over the radio," says his father. 6:30 this morning." He cheers weakly, "Yahoo!" Then looks at the windows again and thinks to ask, "What time is it?" "Almost 3 in the afternoon," says his mother. "You've been sleeping for 13 hours." "Oh no, only 2 hours of daylight left. Have to kill." He tries to leap from the bed, but is caught in a web of arms. "Not today, pal," says his father. "You are grounded." "Yeah, pal," says Polly, shaking her finger in his face, looking stern. "For the rest of the day." "Yeah." "And you're going to stay grounded if I have to sit on you." "Yeah." Polly applauds, and now there's an evil grin on her face, and she's reaching into her pocket and pulling out My lucky stone! He snatches at it. She pulls it away, sticks out her tongue. He whines, Mom! His mother holds out her hand. Give. Polly gives. Mom, drop it! He yells. He yells this so suddenly she does just that. She drops it onto the bed. You can't touch it! He picks it up. She looks hurt. But I'm your mother. She doesn't understand. A lucky stone loses its power if other people touch it. Nobody can touch it but me! He stashes it under the pillow. Is that thing what I think it is? His mother says. Bubblegum. I thought so. See? Polly sneers. It's not even a stone. She juts her face at him, and it ain't lucky. And it was in your mouth. Ew! Do you want to tell us why it was in your mouth? His mother says. He thinks for a moment. No, I guess not. His mother smiles. Okay. Polly whines. Mom, make him tell. I'm making you get off this bed. She pulls Polly off. Give your brother some peace. You were sure nice to him as long as he was sleeping. Now shoot. Polly stomps from the bedroom. The phone rings. It's Aunt Sybil. She wants to know how the patient is doing. Then it's Aunt Janet calling, then Cousin Marty and Cousin Will and Aunt Melissa. When the doorbell starts ringing, first in is Mrs. Lopresti, the new neighbor. He's allowed downstairs to be bundled up on the sofa. For the rest of the day and evening, neighbors and relatives come and go. There's talk and laughter and food all over the place. Almost every person has the same question. Why? What was he doing out there? They want to know. And when his parents tell them why, they turn to him and stare at him funny. And they come over, and some sit on the edge of the sofa, and some just bend down. And they're all smiling, that half sad sort of smile his mother had upstairs. And they all seem to have to reach out and touch him. He can't remember ever being touched so much. I wonder how they're feeling. How would you describe it? I know how it makes me feel to think about this kid. Somewhere in there, among all the ringing doorbells and laughter, he looks up and it's Claudia and her mother standing there. Claudia pounces on him and kisses him loudly a dozen times. Then she says something to him. He can't understand her words, but he doesn't have to. He feels them. As for Claudia's mother, she doesn't say why like the others. She says nothing. She just sits on the sofa and pulls him into herself and won't let him go. That's beautiful. All in all, there's so much going on that he pretty much forgets he slept through the snow day. That's the end of the chapter. Chapter 29. Two more chapters left. It's almost 10 o'clock when the last of the visitors leave and the party's over. His parents come and sit on the rug by the sofa and tell him how it happened the night before. You didn't come home when you were supposed to, says his mother. As usual, his father cuts in. We weren't worried at first. We thought you were out playing in the snow. But then it was 8:30, 9 o'clock, and you still weren't home. That's when we officially started to worry. His mother called the homes of kids he might be playing with while his father started trekking the streets, calling his name. They really didn't want to call the police. Only an hour before, there had been all that commotion over the little lost girl on Willow Street, and now they knew how it would sound. Guess what? Another one's lost. But when it's dark and the streets are deserted and every kid in town is safe and snug at home except yours, you don't care how it sounds. You call the police, and they came like a flashing army, the same police cars and rescue trucks and emergency vans that had been out for the little girl only hours before. Now it was their street lit up like a block party. Only it wasn't like the little girl, says his father. We weren't finding you fast, and the snow was coming down, turning into sleet, then rain. You were out looking too, right, Dad? He says. His dad looks at him. Yeah, I was out. Piece of cake for you, right? He's thinking of his father delivering the mail in all kinds of weather. He's remembering how he used to sit in school and picture his dad hunched like a fullback, punching a hole and whistling blizzards. A fullback is a running back in football. His father gives him a lopsided smile and a squeeze in the knee. Squeeze on the knee. Yeah, piece of cake. They tell him how slowly the minutes and hours passed, and how long Polly tried to stay awake but finally couldn't. There are things they tell him and things they do not tell him, and when they come to the end, when the man in the snowplow finds him far from home and brings him back, and the rescue squad takes over the house and gets him dried and warm and checked out stem to stern, and he's just floppy dopey like a zombie, and they're both so happy, and his mother is bawling like a baby, when they come to the end, how they carried him upstairs and put him right into their own bed between them. By then, there's a smile on his face and he's feeling something he hasn't felt in years, like he's little again, like he's been hearing a bedtime story. So, says his father, just where were you anyway? All that time, where were you looking? He shrugs. Alleys mostly. There seems no need to say more. They stay up until midnight. I know you're not tired, his mother says, but why don't you just give it a try anyway? See what happens. He asked them if he could stay downstairs and sleep here on the sofa. He's getting to like it. They look at each other and finally say okay, as long as he promises not to go sneaking out the door as soon as they turn their backs. They kiss him goodnight, one final hand on his forehead, and upstairs they go. The house is dark and quiet. Everything is dark and quiet but the inside of his head. In there, it's still party time. The phone is ringing, the pizza dripping. In there, it's still snowing and still raining, and still he treks the alleyways looking for Claudia. But now it's almost fun, because the rest of him is plenty warm and on the sofa, and Claudia got found by 8 o'clock, tops. He closes his eyes and gives it a try. Not much happens, but he keeps trying. He hums a lullaby to himself. In the dark, a few small muscles here and there continue to stir. They do not want to sleep. They want to be out in the alleys, searching. And it comes to him what he needs to do. He gets up. He wears the blanket like a robe. In the dark, he feels his way to the front door. He feels for the deadbolt latch. He turns it slowly, as silently as he can, holding his breath. He turns the knob silently, slowly. He opens the door. He leans out, trying to keep his feet on the carpet inside. The night air is cold on his neck. He leans out as far as he can and looks up. He smiles. The sky is clear. They're still there. The stars. He comes back in, closes the door once again on the sofa. He pulls the covers snugly about him and in minutes is fast asleep. Last chapter, 30, zinc off, in quotation marks. After the snow day comes the weekend, and by Monday much of the snow is gone. It remains only in the shadows and corners and north-facing surfaces of the town, and on the edges of large parking lots where the plows have shoved the snow into small gray mountains. The temperature is up to the low 50s, warm for December, and in gutters and alleys all over town water trickles towards sewers and drains. Best of all, Monday is in-service day at Monroe Middle School. There's something special about playing just outside the school doors while all the teachers have to be inside. Kids are swarming. Hockey on the parking lot, football and soccer on the fields, goofing off all over in the balmy weather. Under a canopy of arcing footballs, two kids, Tuttle and Bonce, are having a discussion. Tuttle is pointing. See him? That kid there? He's pointing to a kid in a yellow baseball hat. Yeah. Watch this. Tuttle calls for a ball. He spins the ball in his hand. He fingers the laces. Watch. He calls out to the kid. Hey, yo, here you go. He winds up and fires a trim spiral at the kid. The kid reaches out with both hands as if he's about to take a baby from someone's arms. The ball passes neatly through the kid's hands and drills him in the chest. The kid's hat flies off. He staggers backward, almost falling. He scrambles to retrieve the ball and hat. Tuttle and Bonce share the chuckle of the superior athlete among the underblessed. What a spaz, says Bonce. Look at him. He throws like a girl. He throws like a baby girl. For the record, girls can throw just fine. Who is he, says Bonce. Who knows, says Tuttle. They watch as the kid calls, reaches out for someone to pass another ball to him. Finally, someone does. This time the ball bounces off his head. Again, his hat goes flying. Tuttle and Bonce crack up, howling. Tuttle calls, Yo, Hobbin, come here. Hobbin joins them. Watch this, says Tuttle. Tuttle calls for a ball and does what he did before. He whips a hard one at the kid in the yellow hat. Again, the kid reaches out, and again, the ball passes through his hands and nails him in the chest. Hobbin doesn't seem amused. He sneers. Could have told you. The three of them watch as the kid, this time, tries to punt the ball back to them. On his first try, his foot misses the ball altogether. On his second try, the ball travels some 10 feet in the air. So who is he, says Bonce. His name's Zinkoff, says Hobbin. He went to my school. He's nobody. Yeah, but didn't you hear about him? It's Jansky, who has joined the group. Hear what, says Bonce. About that little girl that got lost the other night. Yeah? This kid goes out looking for her, right? So they find her, like just a little while after she got lost? The others nod. So the little girl's home and all, and everybody else goes home. The search is over, okay? But this kid, he nods toward the kid in the yellow hat. Zinkoff, says Bonce. Yeah, he don't know it. The search is over, and he don't know it. The four of them turn to look at the kid. Bonce says, the little girl's home all safe and found, and he's still out looking for her. Jansky grins into Bonce's face. He says it slowly. For 7 hours. Tuttle shrieks. 7 hours? 7 hours, Jansky repeats. A snowplow found him at 2 o'clock in the morning. Almost ran him over. He was 2 miles from home. Bonce stares at the yellow-hatted kid, who again is trying to punt a ball. He must have been half dead. He must have been half stupid, says Tuttle. How stupid is that? Look until 2 o'clock in the morning for somebody that's already found. Hobbin sneers. Could have told you. Was he froze, says Bonce. Jansky shrugs. What a wipeout, says Tuttle. Should have seen him field day in 4th grade, says Hobbin. Yeah, says Tuttle. Bad, huh? Hobbin does not answer. They all stare at the kid, who is now running this way and that, trying to entice someone to throw him a ball. They try to picture how bad it was. And he likes school. He goes early. Everyone turns to stare at Hobbin, who has spoken these words. They keep staring at him, waiting for him to say he was kidding. But Hobbin says nothing else. They turn their attention back to the kid in the yellow hat, who seems not to know he's being stared at. At last, Bonce says, so, let's get a game. Everybody breaks from the trance. Yeah. Tuttle calls, Gabe, Gabe! Kids who want to play come running. Teams are chosen. Tuttle and Bonce are the captains. They flip fingers for first pick. Tuttle wins. Hobbin, he says. Jansky, says Bonce. They go on choosing sides. Tuttle's here, Bonce is here, until the only one left is the kid in the yellow hat. But the sides are even. Tuttle and Bonce have each chosen 7 kids. Yellow hat is a leftover. But this kid's not acting like a leftover. A normal leftover would see that he's one too many, that everybody but him has been picked, and that therefore he must be pretty hopeless, and therefore he better just get on out of there and go play something he's good at, like Monopoly. But this kid just stands there. He shows no sign of turning and vanishing. And he's not just standing there. He's staring at Tuttle and Bonce. Tuttle says, "We got enough." So now the kid is just staring at Bonce. And Bonce wants to say, "We got enough," but he can't seem to say it. He wishes the kid would just turn away and go. Doesn't he know he's a leftover? Hobbin's voice rings out from the other side. "Tackle!" They usually play a two-hand tag. There are no pads, no helmets, and half the field is muddy from the melted snow. But no one objects. No one wants to appear to be afraid to play tackle. Jansky speaks. "The sides are even up. We don't need nobody else." The kid does not take the hint. This is uncharted territory. A leftover who won't go away. Still, Bonce holds the power. All he has to do is open his mouth. "Please go," he thinks. The kid is still staring at Bonce. The kid really is stupid. The kid doesn't know that even if he's allowed in, he's only going to be ignored, or embarrassed, or hurt. He doesn't know that he's a klutz. Doesn't know he's out of his league. Doesn't know a leftover doesn't stare down a chooser. Doesn't know he's supposed to look down at his shoes or up at the sky and wish he could disappear, because that's what he is, a leftover, the last kid left. But this kid won't back off, and his stare is hitting Bonce like a football in the forehead. In those eyes, Bonce sees something he doesn't understand, and something else he dimly remembers. It occurs to him that he wants to ask the kid what it was like, those 7 hours. He thinks he must be able to see them in the kid's eyes, some sign of them, but he cannot. He wants to ask the kid what it was like being that cold. This is goofy, he thinks. He thinks of 1,000 things to say, 1,000 other ways this could go, but in the end, there's really only one word. He knows that. One word from him, and who knows where we go from there. He points. He says it. "Sink off!" And the game begins. Loser by Jerry Spinelli. Great book. He got picked. I thought it was a beautiful story. So again, you could go now to Reading Quiz. It is in Reading Quiz. Take the quiz. You don't need a passcode. Remember, you needed to get 5 of 7. We cut it down to 5 for this trimester. That was announced several times early in distance learning. So go ahead, take that quiz. And it's the last week of school. Peace. Have a great